Of course, AA Luna is actually pretty good at killing the homing missile. One of the aspects of Gyro versus Luna is as soon as you put the homing missile on her, you give her an ultimatum, right? You say, you're either going to Manta it, you're either going to BKB it, or you're going to let this guy pick techies. Okay, Jubei Techies is on the board, so we're getting a little bit weird with two-based. I remember the last time they did this.
I did not wake up this morning ready for techies. I'm still not ready for techies most of the way through the day, but hey, two-base say you're going to have to deal with it anyway. And as you said, it is something that Jubei is kind of known for, has that reputation. So it's not just a meme pick, it can still certainly work out, but the existence of a techies fundamentally sort of changes the way that the game gets played in a lot of circumstances. So we'll see if Team Unknown play into that sort of shift, or if they try and just stick with what they know will work for them, try and work around the techies, because the techies can be beneficial, but if it doesn't work, if it doesn't start having that impact, you have a hero that's kind of just there and not really contributing consistently. So it's an interesting play, and it's certainly a risk for the two-base side. It's worked out for them in the past, though, so here's hoping. But either way, much like the Arkosh games the other day, it's going to be entertaining regardless of what kind of level of play we see from the techies.
Yep, and perfect. I like this a lot. I was going to say the Clockwork is a fantastic pick. Again, you're getting it versus both the A and the techies. It's brutal versus the techies unless he finds a way to sort of get the creeps on the clock side. There's really no guaranteed chance that you do get off that suicide. So really fantastic pick. I was going to mention how I like Unknown's pick order right now. I think they're really keeping their options open. And of course, having last pick, they kind of have to keep their options open. But going for a really strong opener like Mars Mirana, it makes it a lot more difficult to play that aspect of having a second priority in the draft. But now they immediately counter it with the Batrider. Batrider techies, you're going to pull them into the mines. What can you say? And techies, while it is sort of a meme pick, sort of something that isn't necessarily incredibly reliable, it is much more reliable when you're playing versus a ranged carry that doesn't have the best range. Versus this Gyrocopter, it's going to feel that little bit more effective. Of course, probably going to see the Gyrocopter get that Dragon Lance, do the sort of Ally 2000 build. Probably not going to get too many points in Rocket Barrage. We'll see. Maybe he'll sort of break precedent because there's going to be a techies in his lane. He might just want to try and run down as many people as possible, but we don't know if they're offlaners yet on two-base side. But this Gyrocopter, he has to walk up and hit buildings. He is your tower hitter. Really, nobody else on Unknown's team so far can do that. I would have loved if they could maybe pick up a tiny mid. Now that they see the Batrider, they might even decide to go for it still, but we'll have to sort of feel that one out. But Techies versus Gyrocopter, the Techies is going to have more opportunities than he would otherwise have versus really any other carry matchup in the game. So if there was a Jubei Techies game to shine, now's it. And especially with elimination on the line, two-base, they want to go to the event. They want to play more Dota. And again, for these Reformation teams, for these teams that are sort of getting back into the swing of things because they can't go to TI, this is the exact perfect moment to really just put everything on the table. Just go for it. Make it to the LAN. Well, sort of LAN. Make it to the event.
Right. And especially considering with the sort of switch up with TI, all that's going on, this is your chance to prove yourself. And a lot of people, maybe not forgetting, but overlooking, we're not entirely sure maybe if the format will change, but you're going to have further seasons of the DPC coming up after TI. Not 100% sure, again, what that exactly looks like based on teams sort of switching up their rosters and other things of that nature, but the break around TI is not really an excuse for you to just sort of back off. There's opportunities here for these teams to continue to make changes, continue to improve, head into next year's seasons feeling just that little bit more confident compared to maybe some of your other regional rivals who fell apart or made too many changes or didn't get this kind of practice in. So that is something. I know there's been a lot of complaints about the format and all sorts of things about the pro circuit, but it instills a certain degree of consistency, and you're going to carry over from one season to the next. It's not just a completely total wiping clean of that slate. So for both Team Unknown and two-based, here is your opportunity. If you can get to that main event, start playing up against the likes of the Beast Coast, the Team Undyings, the Four Zoomers, who are all directly invited, that is an opportunity that isn't going to come your way, all the time. Scrims are only going to count for so much. So bit of a long-winded answer on my part, but that is really what's at stake here. These teams sort of taking it seriously as TOOBASED. Okay, going in for the Pangolier to round out their lineup.
Mm-hmm. And again, you're playing against the Gyrocopter's range right now. Fantastic hero pick. Of course, it does sort of mean that most of your damage is going to be coming from those first two picks, the AA Luna, but I really like what TOOBASED have right now. And the Pango pick, it's making me wonder who that lazy player is, but it's definitely a pick that, again, plays very well versus pretty much everyone on the Team of Unknown. I remember all the way back in January when sort of we had the first iteration of this pass, no lettering at the end of it, and that was the old battle. It was you either first banned Pango and you picked Mars, or you didn't pick Mars and you didn't pick Pango, because Pango versus Mars is just that bad for the Mars. You have to get a BKB. It makes it so you don't want to be in your arena. So part of this game is really going to be finding that Pangolier, making sure he doesn't get that initial roll off. And Unknown can 100% chain you from 0 or 100 to 0. They've got the Mirana, they've got the Mars, they've got really good stuns on their side. But if the fight already gets underway, TOOBASED really have this type of lineup where as soon as they get started, they just start rolling over you. They got the Firefly, they got the roll, they will just run at you, use their vision advantage. And again, TOOBASED, they've got a really good vision advantage because they have the techies, they've got the nighttime Luna. I think if they can take most of their fights during nighttime, you're going to see them really start to pull ahead because they can find those targets that much easier than Unknown. Whereas Unknown, they're pretty much all in on a Redis to really get those good initiations, get the site with the flares. And of course, maybe you can get a homing missile here and there, just trying to get something going for you. But we're probably not going to see too many missiles hit. You just got really good ranged heroes at killing it. I don't think Boris is ever going to be too afraid if TOOBASED decide to get on the aggressive whenever they are eventually going to push into Unknown's territory. But Unknown got Leshrac. We see this hero again for the 4th time today. It'll get your buildings. It'll spiral out of those team fights. It's just a guarantee at this point.
Everywhere I look, I see Leshrac. But yeah, I mean, it's such a strong hero for a reason. There's really no reason not to take it. So we'll see what Black Soul can do on that kind of hero. A lot of the time, it feels like Black Soul in particular kind of prefers maybe more active heroes. We've seen him on the Spirits before. The Tiny in particular is something that I've sort of seen him play incredibly well, mostly as stand-ins for other teams, but the fact still remains, the Leshrac maybe not quite as aggressive, but it's still going to give him the opportunity to be active, just not in the same way that you would normally expect. Did they see that? They did.
The smoked boots first, suiciding right out of the fountain techies has gotten you the D word. Not much else I can say about that.
Oh, you lost a foot race to techies. Jesus. What a world we live in.
I think they do not know about this massive rotation, though. Empyrean needs to be really careful here, but if he's able to sort of circumvent it, the problem is this ward might actually bait him to the low ground, because they want the kill. They want to get this really bad, but, you know, if you just hit it from the low ground, the Leshrac is already in a position to sort of deny it, but, okay, as soon as Black Soul starts to move away, well, they see the clock.
Yep. Redis gets spotted. Here. This is getting a little tense. Both sides sort of thinking something's up at this point, but does anybody really make the first move? The clock's moving in once again. No skill just yet, and okay. Takes a couple of tower shots there, so
okay,
could really
nice.
suspect. And, yeah.
Nice.
Jubei and Annihilate getting in there to take that one down. So the D ward comes through after all. The Clockwork takes 1 or 2 tower shots. And not much more going to come of it, but if you're TOOBASED, that really sets up your mid lane for maybe not guaranteed success, but quite a bit of an advantage here. That Bat is going to have his vision on the high ground while Black Soul is basically blinded for the first sort of 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, and of course, it's really small. It's really, in the long term, sort of insignificant, but still, it's just really nice and clean from TOOBASED. That's something you like to see a lot of clean Dota whenever you see the NA boys play, because you know they can do it. It's just sometimes they choose not to do it, it feels like at times.
Especially after getting 2-0'd the other day in a scenario where they didn't really look all that sort of clean and confident. So every little bit to maybe build yourself up early on here is going to sort of count for quite a bit. As down to the bottom lane, Aredes and Jubei just sort of having at each other a little bit. That blast off is skilled up for Jubei, so Between that and maybe a
Jubei-
swashbuckle, but there's going to be the missile. Aredes wants in. Battery assault is going to get popped, but he's in the creep wave. And Jubei says, nope, I'm out. Peace. Quick
And
suicide
that's what
there.
you have to be careful about, because again, you can't do it. You can't. The interval is too good. You can't suicide unless you have it sort of randomly bouncing. But I mean, Jubei's the techies master. He's the master.
He's not going to let himself just give up free gold in that situation. And quick TP gets him right back. Actually, not quite right back to lane. He does back himself away, but up in the top lane, well, Valky and Moonlight moving on to Empyrean. They're able to hit him up there with the rebuke. And Moonlight, yeah, connecting with the arrow to follow it up. Boris can't save his buddy, and this is sort of what you talked about in the draft. This duo, it can put a lot of pressure onto really anyone, but the AA in particular is going to be so incredibly vulnerable to this play. Anytime he tries to push up, hoping to get maybe that sort of chilling touch harassment, you're in danger of getting hit up by that stun combo, and you're not even close to tanky enough to survive it.
And that's when Empyrean, he needs to be very, very careful. Because again, if you're able to get the level advantage on the Murano Mars, you see they're even making an attempt at Boris. Well, Empyrean, nice play. Took the spear.
Secret Service agent stepping in, taking that bullet. And the best part, yeah, Empyrean was at full HP, so he steps in front of that and doesn't even really suffer much in the way of consequences for it. So that is what he's going to have to do. Make this, well, I was going to say sacrificial play. That time there's really not much of a sacrifice to be made, but got to make sure that Boris is left alone. Empyrean is not going to have a fun time if he's soaking up all of this aggression, but if it means that the Luna is safe, you have to just sort of suck it up and make that play.
Yeah, and that's where, again, the creep manipulation, if you can draw this lane, if Empyrean can get the good levels, they've already have the second point up in the Lunar Blessing, that's where you just need to harass these laners out so that way it feels like they can't make the easy play on you. If they can do that, then they're going to be very confident, because they don't have to commit a lot of resources into this lane. You see Moonlight with the gold actually just bought an urn, so if they can kill Empyrean one more time, this lane is actually going to get incredibly hard for both of them. They need to be careful.
Empyrean is literally standing in the trees. Yeah, that's about as predictable an outcome as you can get, and he's pretty much dead. That, I get it, that's standard stuff, but you're a support against a Mars. Maybe don't stand in a situation where there's about 8 or 9 trees around you on all angles.
And the problem now, you gave the urn charges already over, so now what should be more investment into salves, into regen, is now going to be urn charges, so they can get away with just that little bit more. And of course, this is time where Empyrean's going to be further and further away from boots. Boris, he already has the Morbid Mask, so HP is not going to be an issue here, but again, it just goes back to the levels. You're a level 2 AA, you're going to get level 3 in just a few moments here, but they're going to simply get more out of this lane if you keep on playing a little bit too aggressively. They need to be careful, because, again, it already starts. You don't have to buy salves. You get to get away with a little bit more greedy itemization on the Mars and the Mirana. Just get earned up, and this is how the lane is really going to start going in their favor.
This is absolutely the way that Valky in particular sort of wants to play this one out. If he is allowed to sort of cut corners like that, get a little greedy as they connect with the arrow into the spear. That's just a straight free-fired shot, and Boris can't sidestep it. He's straight up dead now. Empyrean, how are you going to get out of here? Body blocks from Valky, keeping him locked in place. They hit him with the urn. They need a little bit more damage, though. That spear is coming back up, but he actually missed it. Now he's stunned. Tower shots, though. Not coming into help. Moonlight will leap forward. Will he Okay, no, he won't, because he chooses not to. Steps back in, so the tower will kill him. Kill's going to get split up pretty much across the entirety of the team, and that's going to give him a chance to go back to base, grab some items, come back at full HP and mana, and then continue to put that sort of aggression onto their opponents. So you waste very little time there. It would have been longer to sort of TP and then walk all the way back.
Yeah, you get an instant courier as well. You're going to come back, give all the resources over to Valkyrie. He gets to buy boots. And again, now you have the movement speed advantage over these top laners. There's just so much to talk about that's going on in this top lane, but it's really just not going the way that TOOBASED want it right now. It feels pretty unfortunate. Boris is going to probably make the move over to the jungle sooner than later, because again, you've got a level 5 Mars 5 minutes into the game. He's going to get that Coliseum so much sooner just because they've gotten away with really just murder at this point. It's 4 kills this early on. This is not how you want this lane to go.
And all of those kills have come in the top lane. Not a whole lot of action anywhere else.
Ooh.
Okay. Soaking up a little bit of that farm. That's honestly a pretty solid play for them. Aredes, meanwhile, I mean, he's doing the best he can. Level 3 Clockwork, though, isn't exactly going to push in there by himself, and Wasabi is nowhere close to a position to help him out. But at this point, I don't know. If you're the Clock, I think you're okay with that. You go in, you disrupt it a little bit. Sure, you can't steal the farm, but at the same time, the Pango is over there, the Techies is over there. There's no one here to slow down the Gyro. Wasabi's just going to keep on sort of farming to his heart's content, and as you mentioned in the draft, looking at the sort of lineup they were going into, Wasabi opting not to put any points up in the Rocket Barrage. So, as you mentioned, the range is sort of a factor for him. He would rather just focus on the farm. The Rocket Barrage can come in, obviously, later on in the match, but for now, there's really no reason for him to prioritize that kind of close-range damage.
Yeah, and it's slightly different than the AoE build. Usually you keep it at level 2 and actually get a point in stats here just to be a little bit greedy. Usually you only get that, or a few more levels in the flak once you are actually committed to farming stacks, because, again, you get stats on Gyro. Gyro is one of the best heroes just to have stacks period on, or stats period on. So he's just going to have a pretty free time. And again, it's the sort of combined harass where you could rocket barrage them twice, or you could very simply put a homing missile and a flat cannon on them and do pretty much the same amount of damage. So it doesn't feel too bad at all. And again, fast pace towards that Aghanim Scepter where he doesn't really have lane opponents because, again, we have this Techies that is sort of stuck really just stacking as much as he can because he doesn't want to force his Pango to play around a slower level 6 timing, and that's where we might see him rotate to the top lane to make a play onto Valkyrie because they need this Pango versus the Mars.
Not seeing that movement out just
He already
yet.
got the tower. He's so farmed.
Tier 1 taken. He's got face boots. He's got a bracer. Working his way towards the blink, and now he's going straight in for the kill. Boris did not show enough respect to that one, and he is going to get taken down. Moonlight comes in to sort of help out on the back end, and that... I mean, we see all with our sort of spectator view, but if you're Boris, you're not on a crazy amount of health, you don't have a whole lot of damage, and Pyrion's too far away and isn't level 6, that... you can't be there. Maybe he just didn't think the Mars was going to actually go for it, but that's a very big risk to take based on just sort of you assuming that he wasn't going to go in for the play, so... seems like a bit of a mistake on Boris's part, and Valky, the killer instinct, just goes in, recognizes he has the opportunity, finds the kill, and now his teammates are setting up mid. They want in, but Ionite's going to go first. There's going to be the lasso. Pulling him in. That gyrocopter is low. He does have wand charges. Can he get him off in time? No, he can't. Wasabi taken down. Meanwhile, Stoked coming in. Nice rolling thunder, keeping everybody locked up. They do lose Empyrean, but at this point, they are going to be able to trade out for a little bit more. Radius will fall, but at this point, Stoked out of time on that rolling thunder. It is time to back away, but Ionite grabs 2 of the kills, including that very, very critical kill onto the gyrocopter. That is big for the Bad Rider right now.
And he is sort of been the quiet farmer on his team as of right now. In addition, I suppose, to the Techies farming that large camp in the triangle, but he already has his boots of travel. Of course, looking across, Black Soul has also had pretty much uncontested free farm. It's just the way these mid laners do sort of go, but right now, if they can keep these lasso plays coming, that was the first lasso play that actually came to him. I was very confused as to why Wasabi was actually in that position. I kind of feel like he could have been anywhere else and it would have been a little bit better. And sort of repercussions felt across the map because of how successful top lane has been. The Moonlight hasn't really had time to stack for his gyrocopter. There's just been too many kills to be had with his Mars, and Annihilate.
Oh, that's a problem. There's going to be the arena into the spear stun. Moonlight throws the arrow. It doesn't connect, but they don't need it at that point. Valky, like you were saying, that top lane, we've seen it so often. One of the side lanes sort of spirals out of control early, and you don't just lose your lane, you've now effectively sort of lost mid. There's not a whole lot to do anymore. That tier 1 tower has been taken. Boris, meanwhile, is losing so much of his sort of safe spaces on the map. The north side jungle is exposed, and you see him just sort of trying his best to farm up in this triangle as the clock. Okay. Hooking in onto that ancient apparition. They hit him up with a spear stun, and they're really starting to get themselves going. Stoked, though, wants revenge. Jubei jumps in with the blast off. That is going to be enough for Stoked to finish things off with that shield crash. So Radius does go down, but clock for AA, I think you're okay with that one. But it is going to create a little bit more breathing room for Boris, if nothing else, as he continues to farm up in the jungle. But at this point, you take a look at his net worth compared to the other cores, it's not a great look at the moment. Still plenty of time, but Boris has to catch up first before he can really sort of have an impact.
Yeah, and that's why you see the circle. They know sort of what the kill range is, and if Valkyrie is going to decide to play down here, it's definitely a little bit risky. Valkyrie does not want to throw away his lead. He wants to still be the monster as long as he can be, but he's making just such quick, fast progress towards this Blink Dagger. And you see him circling again. He knows where two-based have to play, so I think he might be cautioning his teammates, saying, "We'll go down there when we're ready. You don't want to go down there just yet," because again, Valkyrie, if he gives away his lead, he is a massive kill right now for the side of two-base. If they were able to pick him off with the lasso, they would take that every day of the week. But right now, they're going to be able to play in 2 lanes. Imperial Smoke trying to get wards out right now, and it looks like he will be successful, but this is really the only place that two-base can play. They need to fix their lanes in a few moments here, but there isn't much that these heroes can do right now. They sort of have to just go with the blows, and as soon as Valkyrie gets this Blink Dagger, that's when, again, they're going to take another blow at two-base. They could probably breach the triangle with this Blink. It's just that early.
Renewed aggression is sort of on the horizon for Team Unknown, and two-base have to be ready for it, but right now, I don't really know. Annihilate's working towards a BKB, but working is the operative word there. Not exactly close to finishing that off. Boris, obviously, not itemizing defensively at the moment, so if they do get jumped in on, if that Blink Dagger comes out and they are not ready for it, which, as of right now, doesn't seem like they are, they could end up falling even further behind, and then you're going to be in an even rougher position. It's already sort of more difficult than they would like it to be for Boris to find safe farm. If they can find further pickoffs, swing that into further pushes onto maybe the tier 2 towers, then you're just going to have zero control over this map. There will be nowhere safe. Boris is going to have to risk his life just to find any semblance of last hits here, and we'll have excuse me. We'll have to see how that plays out. Team Unknown, they're ready. The Blink Dagger's up. They're eyeing that top lane, and Annihilate just TP'd in. This is going to get okay. Awkward is the word I was going to use, and it still applies. That is an absolute whiff on the arena. Unfortunate, but they could still look for it. Valky continues to push, but at this point, Annihilate's already backed off.
Yeah, and they do need to be careful here, especially whiffing that ultimate in such a fashion. Of course, they don't have the glyph. They know that they don't have the glyph. That's the great thing about Leshrac, is this is how your towers do just sort of fall by the wayside, because again, nobody is making a motion to come up to this top tower. Annihilate is in a pretty good spot here. They know about the Batrider being up here. He did show himself on that previous wave, but I think they're trying to bait Jubei in. If he can get Moonlight from the side,
they want it.
They'll take it.
It's going to be the lasso. The Ice Blast comes in as well. That's a pretty easy one. So Moonlight gets taken down, and very importantly as well, tier 2 tower still standing. So they sort of stalled out that push from their opponents, at least for a little while, and well, what is Boris doing? He's farming. He is taking advantage of the space his team's creating, and honestly, Team Unknown, I feel like they probably should have seen that one coming. As you said, they spotted the Batrider the last time they sort of pushed in. I guess they assumed he had already backed away, but not a great assumption, as they do end up getting Moonlight caught out. At least it's just the Mirana, not any sort of core hero. If the Lesh gets caught there, then we can sort of panic a little bit more, but those are the plays you really don't want to give up to a two-based squad that are playing from behind, but you haven't exactly put them in the ground just yet. This is good, but you can't afford to sort of take your foot off the gas right now, and you see Team Unknown going in for the smoke play. So they want to keep the pressure on. Bit of a misstep the last time around, but we'll see what they can find here, especially with Black Soul having that hasted move speed. He's going to push forward. They run directly into Empyrean, but he wants Boris instead. Evil Scepter coming in. Arrow is actually not going to connect. The Splitter, though, does come through, and now Aredes is in there with the hook shot. He's going to trap Boris up inside of the cogs. They need more damage, and they do manage to get it. Boris taken down. Valky, though, ends up falling as well, and Black Soul actually got clipped by that ult from the Ancient Apparition, so yeah, they get their target, but at what cost? 3 heroes dead, and it might just be 4. Moonlight does not have any more charges on the leap, and he is not getting out of this river.
Yeah, just really sort of clumsy execution in look top. Wasabi? Oh, Jubei wasn't watching. I think that's 5 mines right there. I think that might have been a kill, but again, he's the master. He's the master. I don't know what I'm talking about. But again, it's just the Blink Dagger. It's really tight, and what a spear from Valkyrie. That was max range.
Blinks in, gets the spear, call down comes through. Homing missile actually connected as well, so Stoked wasn't able to get out, and yeah, Stoked apologizing to his teammates there for getting a little bit too greedy, caught out by that Mars, but that is exactly the kind of play that you need from this Mars still. Sure, he went down in that last fight, but he comes back in, he blinks over his opponent, finds the kill, and now Aredes, caught out trying to cross the river. Jubei's going to blow him up. And I mentioned before, you know, TOOBASED, they were down by about 2,000 net worth, but, you know, you couldn't afford to give him too many plays, couldn't afford to give him an in back into it. Boris is still farming. That deficit's gone. It is straight up gone. They are tied up now. They were behind by as much as 3,500 previously in this match, and they are rapidly sort of catching back up, and in some instances maybe even pulling momentum into their own favor. So if you're Team Unknown, don't panic, don't try to go for some sort of knee-jerk reaction, but also be a little bit wary about just how much they're giving up in some of these circumstances.
Yeah, and now we got another good smoke up coming in from TOOBASED. They would love to get Black Soul. If they get him here, this would be huge, but again, it's sort of a difficult kill, especially because it looks like Aridus, he's the smoke popper. He's just giving away all the information here. He's going to run into everyone, but again, he's not worried about his life. Sort
Teammates are coming in, though. They want some sort of counterplay. They get the spear stun in onto the bat. They've blown up Empyrean here as well, but they're going to need more. Annihilate is dropping low. They finished off Jubei at least, but they still need to get that bat. But Annihilate, he gets away, makes it up onto the high ground. He'll TP out. Stoked is sort of left here to deal with the consequences, but well, I mean, the fight still works out, right? Aridus goes down, you trade him out for 3 kills, but you could have had the Bat Rider there with just that little bit more damage. Instead, he gets away, and TOOBASED are at least able to sort of somewhat mitigate their losses there. But that's still a rough go. 3 dead with very little to show for it.
Yeah, and again, it feels a little bit staggered, and is Annihilate baiting here, or?
There's no one to help him. He's in some serious trouble. The spear into the arrow. Wow, okay. Overconfidence, let's call it, from Annihilate. TPing top, thinking after getting away the first time around that Team Unknown wouldn't really continue to look for him, but again, I've said it 2 or 3 times here, teams are just making some very strange assumptions here in the first match of this series that, in a lot of instances, are kind of coming back to bite them in the ass. So, very strange series of circumstances there for Annihilate. He does get picked off, and now Team Unknown, they're sort of reclaiming that previous advantage as Jubei. He's got it. Almost fakes him out. Pops the first one. Valky doesn't die. He thinks he's safe, and then he walks into the second cluster. And Jubei does manage to strike, so you see, that's why he didn't pop it before onto Wasabi. He was waiting for that kill onto the Mars. The Master strikes once again.
And this is good time. This is all time that Boris has been using it to recover pretty nicely. And once he gets his BKB, he will be able to show up to some of these fights. Unfortunately, that BKB is coming at around the same time that this Leshrac will have his, so that's going to be sort of a non-factor. The Eclipse damage isn't really going to end up mattering, I think, as much as maybe a slightly earlier, a slightly more farmed Luna would have, but it's just not even his fault. It's just top lane really spiraled out of control. Really, the strawberry the camel's back was just whenever they were able to kill him at that tier 2 tower. That was just a little bit too much, I think. And Wasabi, he's gone for the BKB as well, so they're going to have double BKB in another minute or so here, and that's going to feel like a really strong timing, one where Unknown might need to kind of push into these tier 2s, finally get some of these outer towers. They've been very hesitant. They've been more on the defending game. They don't want TOOBASED to get away with all too much here. And now they're setting up with the sentries. They're finally demining him just a little bit.
Ice Blast does come through. Moonlight gets clipped by it, but they need more. Stoked. Oh, he was thinking about it, but now that flare is going to reveal him. They know that the Pango's in position. I think they suspect that Jubei might be nearby, although I don't think they confirmed that. But at this point, they're moving their way in. Valky rooted up in place there a little bit as he will take some damage. But while all this is going down, Wasabi, he's farming up 3 camps simultaneously. He is all about the efficiency. Speaking of efficiency, Jubei blasting his way through Moonlight as that Mirana gets picked off once again. So Jubei's doing his best. 5-2 and 3 here for the techies. He is making a contribution. And once again, the loss of that hero kind of takes the wind out of Team Unknown's sails vis-a-vis a push onto that tier 2 tower. They can't get it. It's so low on HP. They have a Leshrac in theory. You just march your way up there and take it, but they do have to show a bit of respect to the defensive capabilities of the TOOBASED lineup.
And now you have BKB finished up on the Batrider as well, so really, TOOBASED, as much as they sort of have been getting worked by Unknown, they're sort of being able to refocus a lot on their own games. Unfortunately, it looks like this will come at the cost of Roche. They are smoked up here, and it's a fresh smoke as well, but Well,
Team
they have
Unknown
to be a
backed
little bit
out.
cautious. Yeah, they're scared. They want the fight first, but this is a little bit risky. At least Blacksoul had a regen rune for the sort of soft reset, but
Valky.
they want Pango. Oh, nice reaction.
And now Stoked wants in. That's not great from him either. At this point, I think everybody should just reset. Okay, no. Valky says, screw that. We're going directly in, but he's going to take an Ice Blast to the face. Redis, though, does hook shot into the backline, but now Boris is going to go to work with that Eclipse. He takes out a couple. Valky dead, Redis dead as well, but those BKBs come into play. Wasabi walks away. Black Soul was able to get himself out as well. So mostly support's going down, 2 down on the 2-base side, but they get that kill onto Valky in exchange. That's going to swing it their way, and at this point, if your Team Unknown, now your Roche potential is, I don't want to say gone, but so significantly diminished that I don't really think it's worth taking the risk. And you see Black Soul not even really thinking about it. He pushes into the woods instead, but he's got to be careful. They use their BKBs. Those are still on cooldown, so if 2-base do go looking for them, you won't have that magic immunity to fall back on, but right now, the Pango doesn't want the fight. Really, neither does the Bat Rider. Annihilate just sort of farming up in the middle lane, but he does have the lasso, so if somebody comes towards him, could try and make a play, but for now he would like to continue building towards that Blink Dagger. Once he picks that up, 2-base have so much more to work with. The Blink Lasso is basically going to guarantee that you can hit him up with the Ice Blast, you can have Stoked come in with that basically guaranteed ult on a stationary target, but while they're waiting for those items, Team Unknown respawn their heroes, they go back into Roche, and this time, no hesitation. They're able to take it down and they get the second life up on Wasabi.
And because of how they engaged before, you could say it's just a really smart play from Unknown where they know that they're not going to defend because they have no idea what the Roshan's HP total is. I don't think they A blasted it before, so 2-base thinking they have more time, they definitely would have wanted to contest it. They have slightly shorter cooldowns, I think, aside from the Eclipse, but they had their BKBs up, just not feeling like they could really make a defense. As well as going into the pit versus a Clockwork, it's a sort of a calculated risk. You never really want to do it on purpose, and Valkyrie's hunting again.
Ooh, man. Stoked on the Pango. I mean, the reaction times have been pretty fantastic. He's dodged 2 or 3 in a row coming out from Valky there, so if you can just sort of keep that distracted, waste those resources, the Mars has got to wait a little while before that combo's back up again, so you're buying yourself some time here. All the while, Boris just building it up, and he has that shard coming out to him now as well, so the Lucent Beam upgrade, you've repeatedly mentioned, it's just so damn powerful, and Boris is going to look to take advantage of it. So now he's got some damage, he's got some magic immunity, he's got the Lucent Beam upgrade, he is looking quite a bit more dangerous, and this is all coming pretty close to Annihilate getting that Blink Dagger up as well. Feels like the itemization really starting to come into focus for 2-based.
Yeah, and if they can get a team fight, of course, they cannot focus the Gyrocopter. They don't have enough, I think, gas in the tank, especially with the way that Wasabi has built up. He's sort of the stat king right now. He doesn't have the sort of satanic Daedalus that we've seen other Gyros in the tournament build up, but it still feels fantastic because you are just a 3,000 HP hero that's going to sit in front of everyone else. This just means that the focus is going to be put onto Black Soul, where they do need to get onto this Leshrac. They need to kill him quick, and that's why he's going for this Aeon Disc. Again, he's not being greedy at all. Once he gets it, it really will kill a lot of the initiation. Oh?
Lasso comes in onto Moonlight. Jubei, well, he's pretty much used everything he's got here, so he is going to be taken down, but 2-base, they really didn't get anything out of that. That Ice Blast comes in there on the backside, but they really needed to hit Moonlight if they wanted that kill, and he was able to sort of step away. So Jubei sacrifices himself for not a whole lot, and now you've got a high ground defense on your hands. Wasabi, with the Aegis in hand for another 2.5, is going to try to get as much damage in here as possible. And he is chunking away that tier 3. This is pretty good, all things considered. Boris is now forced to TP back in. The Lucent Beam comes out. But even if they can get the Gyro, he's still got the second life to work with. So I don't know how much they really want to commit. And at this point, it looks like they're not going to commit at all. They've pushed their opponents away from the base, and that's got to be enough for the time being.
And you see with Aretas, good circles, they know exactly where they want to move, they know exactly where 2-base will probably try to move if they do put more pressure on this tier 2 tower. They do see the Bat Rider showing top, but yeah, there's going to be a big fight.
He got the vision with the
Moonlight.
flare, didn't go in. Oh god, Moonlight, pretty low on HP, but he's going to be able to get himself away. Stoked with the swashbuckle, very nearly finds it. Now Emperion's going to take his shot. There's going to be the Ice Blast.
Shot.
Nicely, actually, nicely done. I Annihilate, though, technically is the one to get the kill, I believe, with the DOT before the Ice Blast goes down. So really, in that situation, if you're Mirana, you were dead one way or another. But good kill from the side of 2-based. Again, just sort of buying time, resetting, keeping their opponents at arm's length, making sure that Team Unknown don't get that sort of breakthrough teamfight victory that they would want or need, really, to get in onto the high ground.
And we see Valkyrie TPing top. They could get Annihilate maybe, but he's actually just going to go for the TP. Jube's got these funny landmines in a straight line in the trees up here, so I guess that'll be the early warning if there is some hero trying to catch you off guard up there. But at the same time, TOOBASED are doing a really good job of playing around the fact that Unknown are trying to run at them as a 5-man. Boris has made a few pretty good breaks to the bottom lane, and his farm is actually quite impressive. He's been able to recover very well. For going second item BKB, he really has done well with what he's got and almost working towards that Daedalus. He's maybe another 1,000 gold away, and that's where the high ground does get very, very difficult, especially with the build that Black Soul has gone for. He's gone more for countering out the Bat Rider than the Luna, so his armor is actually quite low. We're not seeing the Bloodstone, Shiva's Guard, run at you Leshrac that we did in that last game of the previous series, where this is a much slower, much more, I'm going to let my Gyro do the majority of the farming. I'm going to just try to survive. As long as I'm alive, I can do damage. But at the same time, that doesn't really help you versus this Luna, so there are definitely openings for TOOBASED to exploit in this game.
And a shiny new Daedalus up for that Luna as well, so the damage output is frightening, to say the least. So we'll see what Boris wants here. They're smoking up, pushing into the north side jungle, would get them pretty damn close to Black Soul on that Leshrac, but looks like first they're actually going to be running into Valky. Actually, first they run into the Gyrocopter. They hit him up with that lasso, trying to pull him back in. Jube tries to dish out the damage, but the BKBs had already been activated, so that unfortunately is going to fall apart. Empyrean and Jube both get taken down. BKBs out from pretty much everybody on that Team Unknown side. That forces TOOBASED to try and sort of fall back. They're hoping to bait into these mines, but Team Unknown not exactly falling into that trap at the moment. So if you're TOOBASED, it was a decent attempt, but the Gyrocopter just can't be taken down quickly enough. Annihilate, though, is still trying to push his way forward, but at this point, Moonlight able to jump himself out with those leap charges, and I don't know how much further you want to go if you're TOOBASED. You're pushing into what would turn into a 3v5, so it kind of feels like their moment has passed, and they will back themselves off.
And they do need to be cautious. The overextension could definitely be punished. Of course, having the arena already committed a little bit earlier, they don't need to be too afraid of that. That's really where Aretis has sort of been the quiet clockwork so far. He's had a few good hooks here and there, but he hasn't really been able to catch TOOBASED in that moment of retreat when they are trying to back out. TOOBASED has been very successful in that regard, and they do have some fairly slippery heroes. Everyone is very adept at sort of escaping, and Aretis does need to be a little bit careful here, but this is a very dangerous position to be in for both sides. They got to be really careful, especially having that observer already on the high ground here.
Yep, something's got to break relatively soon. There it is. The lasso in onto the gyro. They're going to hit him up with the Ice Blast as well. Wasabi, though, pops the BKB. Not dead just yet. Trying to fight his way through this, but Boris is going to be able to win that 1v1. Wasabi taken down. Jube and Empyrean, though, both taken down once again, but at this point, the cores are holding the line. They're able to get in onto Black Soul. They'll take him down. Valky's now going to get rooted up. Moonlight, though, does blink in, looking for the last bit of damage to kill off the Luna, but they don't quite have it. Boris continues to keep himself alive. He's going to turn around for the Lucent Beam to finish off that kill onto the Mars. And Moonlight, Jesus, gets out by the skin of his teeth there. The Flame Break DOT doesn't finish him off in time. Can't kill him in the fountain, but that was the fight TOOBASED wanted the last time around. They lose the same two supports that they did in that previous instance, but by the time they're dead, the rest of the core heroes were in position to keep the fight going. That's the big difference. The last time around, they were sort of on the edge of the fight rather than in the center. This time, they just really clean out. Other than Moonlight, they get everybody.
And of course, Aretis, talked about him just a little bit. He wasn't able to get his hook shot off. He wasn't able to have a really big impact there. And I understand why you don't want to go towards that Satanic. You don't want to buy Satanic versus AA. It's just, you don't do that, plain and simple. But Boris just clobbered you in the fight with his itemization. He just sat there, he pressed Mom versus a Gyrocopter, and he came out on top because he's just doing that much more damage than the Gyro is. And at the same time, it came to fruition. The Leshrac, he tried to stand next to Boris, and Boris pressed Q once, and he killed him in 2 shots. And this is a very big problem, considering now Boris has the Satanic. Now the Gyro, who needs to be close to output this damage, it feels like the timing has sort of gone past. You see even Wasabi backtracking, not finishing a Daedalus of his own to go for that Satanic, because he feels like if he can sort of avoid that AA blast, he won't need to worry about it. But again, Boris has kind of come into his own. He's gained so much net worth off these past 2 fights. I think if TOOBASED can get the next Aegis, this game might start to flip on its head because, again, Black Soul isn't the core to deal with this Luna right now. It needs
Ooh.
to be sort of a kite fest.
Long range arrow connecting, so Moonlight is suspecting that something is there, but as you sort of mentioned for Boris, this Satanic I feel is such a huge pickoff. It was not entirely a straight up 1v1, but on the back end of that fight, it really did come down to sort of Wasabi versus Boris, and he lost. He didn't sort of have the damage he needed to get through the Luna, and now with the Satanic on top of it, it's hard to see him necessarily winning that fight unless he has significant amounts of help. But this time, they're going to be able to catch out somebody all by themselves. Jubei was trying to push out that middle lane, but he does end up getting taken down. Quick and easy kill for Team Unknown. Wasabi gets the credit for it, but at this point, I think Jubei is not going to care too much about that. As long as he's trying to sort of keep these waves pushed out, that is going to be acceptable, or an acceptable death for him.
And I mean, you take a look at the mid lane here. Nothing's getting pushed. Right now, Unknown, this is the issue now where you need to get close to these buildings to actually have an effect. It takes, what, 3 mines, and that'll pop the AN disc on Black Soul every single time. I think Black Soul really messed up his itemization this game. I think he's really going to regret some of the choices he's decided to make here. And that's where I think Unknown, they're going to sort of stumble into the aimless techies game where there are going to be an infinite amount of opportunities for the Pango roll, for the lasso to find and kill these heroes, where the really only objective that Unknown can take to bring back focus to the game is this Roshan, and it will be respawning in 35 seconds. That's going to be the massive objective that TOOBASED are definitely going to contest, but Unknown, they have to play around the fact that they are Radiant, they are going to force you to this side of the map, but if they get lulled into this sort of slow-paced style of game, you have to favor TOOBASED. They just simply have the better pickoff. They have more opportunities to really get those small advantages that are going to turn into huge leads.
And,
Ooh.
oh boy, Boris.
Boris.
Okay, dodges the stun. I Annihilate, he's thinking about the lasso, but doesn't want to commit for it. But Arady says, no, you're in here. You are in this fight, traps him up, but BKBs come out, at least from the Bat Rider. That's going to lead them into the lasso play. They're trying to pull the Clockwork as far away from his teammates as possible. They get it. They do get the Ice Blast down as well. Moonlight's going to be dropping. He will be taken down. Boris picks up both of those kills, and now, at this point, Team Unknown feeling like they need the buyback. Moonlight's back into the engagement. No Moonlight Shadow, but he could commit the arrow. Has a little bit of damage with the Starstorm as well, but at this point, it really doesn't feel like there's much of a fight to buy back into. TOOBASED doing very well there. After securing those picks, they back off as a group. They don't leave any sort of stragglers for Team Unknown to turn on. And that fight goes incredibly well for them. Boris just leads the way with the damage.
Yeah, and I think now, what a terrible time to have to buy back because Roshan is alive. Needs to be careful on the Bat Rider. Well, Valkyrie, he's not finding these key spears. He's not finding the picks he needs. And this is all time that the Clockwork is dead. Of course, when he does respawn, it is going to be more difficult for TOOBASED to sort of refocus. And again, if they can wait out these timers, they're going to have BKB in just a few moments here on Boris. This Roshan is the only objective Unknown can take to get sort of an even fight, a fair fight out of TOOBASED. And they have to take it convincingly. Otherwise, I think TOOBASED are going to start to snowball this even further.
They did sort of poke their heads in there for just a moment, not committing fully though. This is where things are really going to get tense. You see Jubei starting to set up on that high ground just in case the fight can be slowly but surely sort of pulled over into that area. But you can't set up directly around the pit. That is going to be the downside here. So if Team Unknown can sort of dictate when and where this fight's going to happen, that will go well for them as that smoke play getting a little bit ruined. He runs into the mine. They don't see him directly, but they know he's there. And now Boris, okay, in with the Lucent. Nice bit of damage onto the Gyro. Already down to about half HP, but he is going to be able to heal himself back up on those camps. So overall, he should be fine, but that's sort of the opening salvo here in this fight. Neither side really able to do much, but I Annihilate, he wants in. Does he blink? Yes, he does. Blinking in. He's going to be able to get the lasso down, but there's the Eul Scepter to immediately break that one up. The BKB comes out afterwards, but they're still pushing their way forward. Valky is going to get hit up. Dropping down the arena, though, into the Spear Stun, locking up Luna. There's going to be the hookshot in from the Clockwork as well. He needs the Satanic, but he can't get it off yet. He will eventually be able to activate that as he will begin to heal back up, but now the Gyro, his BKB's worn off. He needs backup. His teammates are nowhere to really be found in terms of actually saving his life, as they do end up losing Wasabi, but they'll take Boris down in exchange. At this point, though, I don't really think it's going to be enough to matter. Moonlight is getting away, but that Lesh is... There we go. I was going to say maybe getting away, but they turn around, they get the Hex onto him. I Annihilate is able to sort of set up that secondary push forward, and Team Unknown will lose pretty much everything. They took down Boris. That's... I mean, it's not unimportant, but it just wasn't enough. They had to commit so much for that they couldn't finish off anyone else.
Yeah, and it is slightly unfortunate because they did take down Boris, meaning that there won't be very much structural damage. They're not going to get a free Roche. They do have to sort of wait. Their lineup isn't very adept at taking those objectives aside from the Luna, but that was exactly what they wanted. It was perfect on the high ground. I think Boris would have even lived there. He just got lost a little bit, lost track of the splitters on the ground, so he did end up getting clipped and cleaned up, but at the same time, Unknown, they want to take these fights. They need to take these fights, but we're getting to a point where now the net worth is starting to actually outpace their lineup, where you have a Hex on the Techies, you have a lot of items on this Pangolier. He's buffing up every other hero so much, and this Batrider is outputting a crazy amount of damage, and if this AA Blast ever hits a key target, then you are just burning to the magic damage. BKBs are getting to the point where they're so low. This Batrider, the Napalm spam, the Flame Break spam, it just hurts so badly, and they're guarding this deity in front of the pit just because they know as soon as Boris is alive, if they keep this shrine under their control, this is going to force Unknown again into a very, very bad fight for them. And if they don't take it well, if they don't execute it extremely tightly, it's going to go into the hands of TOOBASED, and I don't think 2 Lunas is going to bode very well for their base.
Yeah, they don't really have the greatest amount of sort of defensive power if Boris can sort of act as that battering ram. So they're going to go for it. Boris has bottled up the DD rune. He's going in. I Annihilate, though. Speaking of going in, he's caught out already. So if they can take the Clockwork out right now, yeah, no more hookshot, no buyback available. So who goes in to try and contest Roshan here? As of right now, it looks like the answer is kind of no one. They can't afford. Okay, never mind. Got enough money for it. Needed to wait a moment, but the buyback is there, so he is back in. And as soon as he buys back, you see TOOBASED sort of regrouping here, but Valky doesn't want to let them go. He's going to push in. Where's the backup again? Jumps in, immediately gets hit up by the Hex. Radius is going to hook his way forward, but as he hooks in, he gets hit by those mines. Really? Wow, mid-hook, actually. He just gets taken down. So Radius will fall. Empyrean gets taken down as well, but he is going to be buying back into the match, and he does have that ult available. So Team Unknown, they've bought some time, but Boris is still in there, still looking for Roche. Wasabi, though, trying to push his way forward. Flame Break's going to push him away, but now the homing missile's coming in. Stoked, stunned up repeatedly, but not dead. Wasabi hit by the Ice Blast. Empyrean's buyback paying off in a massive way. He hits in with that Ice Blast. Boris has the damage to follow it up, and I think Team Unknown have sort of lost their opening here, unless they're willing to commit buybacks, but at this point it's already too late. Roche taken. Boris is going to take the Aegis and the Cheese. He's even got the shard in his hands, but he will be passing that off, considering he already has his own shard upgrade. So, I mean, this is what TOOBASED wanted. It takes them maybe 1 or 2 attempts to get that fight, but once they have it, they know they can win it, and now what do Team Unknown do? They don't want to have to commit these buybacks, but if they don't, Tier 2 tower is going to be taken down, and Boris with 2 lives is just going to keep on pushing. He's looking for the Tier 3, making his way onto the high ground. Valky is going to be able to push him back, but that leads... Oh, I Annihilate in there with the lasso. They pull Valky in, and that's just... That's such a bait play to a certain extent. Valky probably should have known better. You get that spear out there. What real good does that do? You cut through a little bit of the creep wave, you get some damage onto Boris. The best case scenario is just that you harass the opponent. The worst case is that I Annihilate is waiting in the wings for that initiation. So this feels like a risk Valky absolutely did not have to take, and now with him down, Boris is going in for a second lane of racks. No one's in position to stop him. It's just the 2 supports alive at the moment.
It's even Jube. He's just waiting to break Moonlight's TP. He's not going to let them run it back to the base, or at least not easily. He's going to set himself up, and actually it's just I Annihilate walking over, and it's just sort of a freebie. They're taking this with full confidence. They're going to back out of bottom because they are showing 2 heroes, but again, it's just these advantages. The net worth lead continues to grow, and I think Unknown are really unhappy with the way that this game sort of ended up going. They really just got dragged down to 2-base level, and it feels like now Boris, there's no reason for him not to just sort of encapsulate the bottom and mid lanes. He can just keep them in constantly, or he can retreat to the other side of the map and just farm up even further. There's really no bad option for him. He can do pretty much whatever he wants. There's very little kill threat on him anymore.
Okay, what in the world's going on here? The Luna picked up the shards from Roche, but already had the shard, so carried it around for a while, and has now passed it off to Stoked, who also already has his shard. This shard dropped several minutes ago. Just does every single person has it? Okay.
Gyro.
gyro.
Well,
Oh boy, he has buyback, but they're absolutely going to need it right now as Boris is pushing his way forward. They're going to take down that bottom lane of Rax, and at this point, I mean, without the gyro, what can you really do here? The good news, at least, is that they can't have the
they're gonna
megas
force
picked
it.
up, as there's still a tier 1 and a tier 2 in the top lane, but yeah, they're going after tier 4s. Is this enough, though, to convince the gyro that he needs to buy back? It really, truly feels like it does. Boris is continuing to lay the hits in. One tier 4 has gone down, a second is falling, and...
And
anything?
there is a glyph available. They called it.
Wow.
Okay.
I mean, they weren't looking like they were in a great position to win that fight, even if the gyro does buy back, but I'm kind of surprised they don't give it a go, but... at that point, they're willing to concede defeat. Simply TOOBASED going in with the techies in game 1. As said in the draft, that's the thing about the techies, just sort of fundamentally changes the way you can approach a match, and Team Unknown really don't make the adjustment. They started out okay, but that momentum just gets sapped away bit by bit by the techies play in particular, but some strong play in general from TOOBASED.
Yeah, and I think really Annihilate holding down the fort, there was a very quiet, a very patient game coming from really just all of the cores on the two-base side. I mean, Boris starting out 1-3-3, really just had the quietest Luna game you could possibly imagine, doesn't go for any greedy items, went everything he needed if a fight was going to spark out, and then just played around it fantastically. It really wasn't until sort of the 30-minute mark when they started really heating up, getting those really good team fights going for them. And I don't want to say that the techies didn't have that much of an effect on the game. I just don't think Unknown were really playing around the mines ever. I think TOOBASED got them in sort of this chokehold position where Unknown didn't push their advantage quite early enough. They didn't itemize for what they needed to fight against. And then it ended up in this very awkward position where they stopped taking convincing fights versus the Luna. They had a situation where I think Boris is afraid to walk up to waves. Boris is afraid to farm in his triangle. I think it was just maybe 2 or 3 initiations that Valkyrie wasn't able to successfully get, and there just wasn't the follow-up from the supporting cast. This is the second time we've seen this immediate rush build coming in from Moonlight, and I'm not saying that the Axe on Mirana is bad by any means, but I think you should just have a Yules, man. Have some sort of secondary initiation, stagger the enemy team's initiation, because I feel like Simply TOOBASED, they just kind of got away with murder. They were able to play in way too many lanes, and of course you're going to fall behind on net worth, but you had such a demanding lead coming out of that early game. I really felt like they could keep the heat up.
Yeah, it just felt like, as we were sort of saying, that their momentum gets sapped away. And not all of that, as you were mentioning, is down to just sort of the techies play. Simply TOOBASED in general just did everything that they needed, and it feels like Team Unknown had the opportunities to try and adjust, and they just really didn't. Or they took gambles on plays that they didn't need to, or in a lot of cases sort of itemized in questionable directions. So they had their opportunities to try and pull it back. They weren't able to do so, and Simply TOOBASED able to really punish them for that as they take the first match of this best of 3. So their first win of the closed qualifier, a win that they sort of needed after their 0-2 loss earlier on. But the question now is, can they keep it going? They've taken one match. They've pulled out that techies card. I doubt Team Unknown are going to let them try that one again. So we'll probably be seeing something a little bit more conventional from TOOBASED, just sort of out of necessity as opposed to preference, as Team Unknown should make that draft adjustment. But we'll have to wait and see. Game 2 going to be coming up in just a little bit. Before we hop into that break, though, we do have a word from our sponsor. We are... There we go. So I can actually read it. We are thanking Mate Mate for sponsoring this event. You can purchase your Mate Mate at bts.gg/Mate Mate with the code BTSDota. That code gets you a 15% discount on your order, as well as free international shipping. Also, when you purchase a case of Mate Mate using that link, you are entered into Mate Mate's giveaway. They're giving away gaming chairs, Razer keyboard and mouse bundle, even an entire gaming tower, an entire PC, courtesy of Aftershock. So buy yourself a case of Mate Mate, use that discount code, and potentially win some pretty impressive stuff. Get that gaming chair and increase your MMR. That is how it works. Don't let anyone tell you differently. So thank you to Mate Mate. You can, as we said, go to bts.gg/Mate Mate. I believe we also have a banner down below the video player that will take you there as well. So thank you to Mate Mate for sponsoring us, and we are going to be stepping away. got some ads to run, but when we return, game 2 between Simply Two Based and Team Unknown. See you then.